How would you feel about a high school class called therapy where kids are taught how to set boundaries and deal with their emotions in a healthy manner? I had a class in HS called Life Skills that was all about emotional health. It was a good thing. Sadly, one of our classmates, he and his girlfriend were both in the LS class, passed away mid-year. He fell out of a boat and couldn't swim. Having that group really helped us work though coming to grips with it. R.I.P. Tiger. My friend is training to be a social worker, and I'm currently working in a school. They do sessions on friendship/romantic relationships, boundaries and consent, and other modules which try to teach social and emotional healthy behaviors. It's not quite the same as what you're saying, but it does have elements of this. I think the key is you start young and then continue to build on it in different ways. The point I would make though is that this is not for teachers to teach, it's for social workers or therapists. As a former high school student, I can tell you 60% of them would not take it seriously. Edit, this is a rough estimate, depending on the class dynamic it could be anything between 100% of the class and like 50 I'd say. The other way would be more realistic though I feel like. Edit 2, if we use this comment section as a field experiment, I found that for every positive opinion on this subject there are 2 to 3 negative ones, so my estimate of 60% was slightly low. Now, I know that Reddit might not be the perfect testing grounds, but you have to agree that there is a clear trend here. I would have firmly ignored about everything in it as a teenager at that age. I was okay in high school, but everything got set up for depression I have had since college that I haven't been able to shake. But looking back at me in high school, I don't think anyone could have gotten through. I had a series of a few sessions with a therapist my mom wanted my brother and I to do with her, and I hated them and wouldn't have considered going to any other therapist then, even though the therapist was really worried about me. I was 25 before I ever considered therapy. And you're never ready until you choose to go. My parents took me to people, waste of money. None of it meant anything until I walked in myself. Realistically, if anyone knows you're in that class, you're going to get bullied. I don't think it's a bad idea, but a lot of people wouldn't take it seriously, and the only ones that would take it seriously brings us to B. It's generally not something most people, especially the ones that needed it, want to do as a group, especially with classmates. There's already a massive push going on in the US to incorporate this kind of learning into classrooms in the form of social emotional learning. Research shows that it has to be comprehensive, though, and is actually most effective for early adolescents, roughly ages 6 to 8 to 14. This is the stage when youth are both most receptive to such learning and, statistically, will benefit the most from it. Sequestering it into a single classroom setting at the high school level would not be of much use. One of the biggest points of vulnerability for at-risk youth is the transition into high school. Additionally, while high schoolers can benefit from the effect is dampened somewhat for reasons unclear. One hypothesis is simply that teenagers are at a point in their lives where they're growing more independent, and as a result they're not as receptive to being taught life skills by adults in positions of authority. Assuming this to be the case, could actually have a detrimental effect, as it interferes with other critical development in youths. Whatever the case may be, I maintain that it's important to focus more on in adolescence, and that a class called therapy would not be in youth's best interests. Assuming the class is going to be taught by a high school teacher, and not a real therapist/professional? If so, then I think it's a god-awful idea. I think for the class to be effective it would definitely require competent, experienced teacher who listens. This is due to half of the class would treat it like a joke just as they do sex ed. You'd be surprised how much you can influence a student simply by giving them a comfortable place to sit. The school I worked at had a bunch of small sofas and other second-hand bits of living room furniture for students to use during group therapy. They were able to put their feet up and act like normal people instead of institutional members. I didn't pay attention in math. Why would I in some class that doesn't even get me a qualification? Isn't that just called parenting? High school-aged me would have resented the fuck out of being forced to do that. Crosses a personal boundary, you might say. There is no panacea for human emotion. We're all different. You mean health class? That's what I thought. I assumed that this was just another part of health/gym. Learn about dental dams one day, and learn about emotional dams the next. I would think it is super stupid. I mean, it would be helpful, but nobody cares about that. We are teenagers. There isn't a single high school teacher I'd trust to teach such a class. Way too fucking late. You want that shit in elementary school when kids are still moldable. I think it would need to be emotional health rather than therapy. And I think it would be a great idea if incorporated as a required class or a part of existing health class curriculum. I have a class at my high school called Positive Psychology, and it is all about how to improve your mental health and offers support to depressed students. They also learn about meditation and other methods of dealing with anxiety and depression. They watch movies every Friday and go on walks every day. I hear it's pretty nice. I like the idea in general, but would make it more broad and general, like a self-care class, where kids learn about sleep, diet, exercise, communication, mindfulness, and yes, boundaries and emotional regulation could be part of the curriculum. Not everyone would be engaged, but could make a big difference to the overall well-being of the school. The class already exists. It's called Health, in our state, required in grades 7 and 9. Everything you list is part of the curriculum, along with drugs/alcohol and sex ed. And the kids don't take it seriously because they already know everything. They've started to introduce the idea of talking about feelings at my school. I wouldn't take it serious even though it would help. It really depends on the people that teach it. I don't know. Don't call it therapy though, that would either scare off the people that need it most or attract the wrong kinds of people. My school board implemented a unit like this into my ethics class for this year. We'll be talking about toxic versus non-toxic relationships and how to deal with emotions. Though, I'm not too sure how well this will play out. I have a feeling a lot of students will just make fun of the class and not take it seriously. I feel like this is because schools just pussyfoot around issues. We can't alarm our students, everyone, so let's just soften the real-world issues they'll be learning about. I'm sure the sudden shock and trauma they'll experience once they graduate and are no longer in a safe, contained environment won't have long-term consequences to their mental states at all. Rape, war, murder, abuse, etc., all just ignored in hopes that the students will have a nice, boring life and never experience these things. Then when they do, it's in a bad place with no support and where they can be taken advantage of, and they have no context or experience or knowledge on how they should be handling the situation. It's just a bad way to handle these things, emo. But as you've said, this has to get through a school board and parents and blah blah blah, so it'll probably never change. How would you feel about and LT, insert popular opinion here and GT, why does this shit get upvoted to the top? Not as a mandatory thing, we did something like that last year and it bored the ever-loving shit out of me. Isn't high school too late? Sounds to me like elementary school would be better for building these skills. Sound like a good idea, but it would be hard to find a teacher that can properly consult a generalized group of raging hormone teens. B. Kids who will take the class seriously. C. Kids who actually need the help, but are too insecure to reach out. This is a class that should be instituted in elementary school. In high school it would be wasted. That isn't the concern of public school. That's a job for parents or maybe a private institution. As long as they bring in someone trained in those things like a counselor or psychologist. Regular classroom teachers have enough without having to do that, too. I think the idea is good, it would just need to be done well. As a current high school student, I can assure no kid will take it seriously. If it was set up like a class, it would make my situation a lot worse, tbh. I took a class in high school titled Relationships. It covered advice on current and future relationships, recognizing and processing emotions, and helped to improve communication with people we interacted with daily. We got to vent about poor interactions and offered strategies for the future. We also did breathing exercises laying on the floor with the lights off. Naps were not discouraged. A class? No. A couple dedicated staff members to help deal with such issues as needed, sure. It's not like schools have guidance counselors or anything. Waste of time. That's a parent's job, not a high school's job. You're not wrong about it being the parent's job. Problem with that is the fact that the kids who would need such a class need it because their parents don't want them to have those skills. We can barely teach kids go read in schools. Imagine the parents, ha 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 ha, talking about real problems. Ha 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 ha. I would not brand it as therapy, to be honest. Good in theory though. Think it needs more polish, and instead of a class, would maybe have it as a concept for a course on self-leadership. I think a class called Basic United States Law and Human Rights would be much more valuable. I can't believe they throw kids out into the world without know things like how an eviction works, or what to do if you are under arrest. I think it needs to start younger to combat the negative stigma around it. No reason elementary and middle school students can't be exposed to these lessons too. Sure, they may not take it seriously either, but the repetition will make it stick in a good number of kids and have a longer lasting impact. I knew some older teenagers who had never picked up a hammer in their entire lives. I had them help me build a wall and put up paneling in my basement. I would love it if schools, high school, universities, etc., would teach kids some real practical life skills along with the regular school classes. Shop class no longer exists. I'll say what I say every damn time. 1. We already run multiple programs to address this, plus taking the teachable moments during class time to do this as well. 2. Please stop shifting all social responsibility to schools and teachers. Sincerely, a burned out teacher. Is this available for night classes or adult education? They actually do have classes you can take to learn how to better manage negative emotions, and you can find out about them through your doctor or health insurance. It will be a group therapy setting and they'll teach you techniques from CBT or DBT. This is going to change a lot of things. I know most of the top comments say it won't make a difference or people will still get bullied / won't take it seriously. Let them. Build your temple. They will come. Slowly at first, they will seem indifferent or averse to it. Then more and more until the idea spreads like wildfire. I'm sure even Mr. Rogers had people against the idea of him and his nature in the beginning. But change takes time and we have to start somewhere. These children need help. They need guidance. They need support. And so do these educators. I just got out of high school a year ago. This therapy class was literally my psychology class. We got educated on the subject, but the teacher would also occasionally give us tests about our stress. If he noticed one of us had a particular high score, he would meet with them in person and help them get through. Yes, I could have used that. I had a bad at-home life until I was in 7th grade and never learned how to properly socialize, or what was good or bad to talk about. I get the wrong feelings too fast or don't show any. Really needed something like that. These classes exist now in Plano, Texas in public schools in high school. Once a week class. Kids love them. Parents can attend 5 classes outside of school hours with the family. We have attended one and it was great. I think it is called emotional learning and we all learned. I think they are in the 2nd year of this program at the school. My middle kid is a freshman. Edit, cell, social emotional learning. This feels a bit like what parents should be doing, not school. It sounds like another bullshit class like the ones where you carry around a fake baby. Everyone in it takes it for the easy pass to get through graduation and everyone else looks down on it as the worthless waste of resources and time that it is. Totally against it. Waste of school time, and only invites bullying.